Last thing, we want to talk a little bit about this, and we did talk about it throughout the episode. Joey teed me up with some good questions, so that was pretty great. And I wanted to talk about post-judgment motions and what that means, right? So there's a decent amount of my practice that is dedicated to this, to things that happen after your final judgment, right? So not what do you expect with getting your court orders or anything like that, but anything that happens that's a post-judgment motion that is not that modification. So some examples of things that are very frequently filed in post-judgment motions are motions for contempt, motions for enforcement, which many times could be combined, and it depends on the subject matter, because equitable distribution, not enforceable by contempt. Don't have a great answer why. There's an answer out there. It's just not a good one, so I'm not going to cite it. So you can't enforce that by contempt. You have to make sure you include your motion for enforcement as well as contempt if you think it's contemptible behavior. Then the other items that are sometimes a motion for clarification, maybe if there's a portion of your agreement or your final judgment that was unclear and the two of you need clarification, you can ask the court for that. So those kind of things. You could also have motions to require compliance with a certain thing, right? I recently had a hearing on a motion to require the husband to execute the paperwork to update the passport. So that was one that Dad really believed because he thought he didn't want her to travel, right? Particularly controlling type character, that he didn't have to sign the passport. So don't worry. The judge told him he's wrong. That was good. So the other things that you possibly could have after a judgment is a motion to correct arrears. So sometimes child support arrearages end up wrong if you miss payments or they get adjusted, or you made a direct payment and you were in between jobs and you made a direct payment to your ex for child support and the state disbursement unit didn't get a copy of that. You could correct those arrears. You could file, there are a variety of motions. The list is sort of endless, but it's unique to your circumstance. But there are certain things that you couldn't file just for a motion. You couldn't file, for example, a motion to change time sharing. You actually would have to bring that as a petition for modification. So it would be a whole new cause of action. Yes, that's right. You're starting over. You're going to do those financial affidavits. You're going to do your mandatory disclosure. You're going to go to mediation, at least here in Orange County and very likely in our surrounding counties, mediation before you'll end up getting in front of the judge on that issue. So you're going to trigger starting a case over, and you're going to need to make sure you meet that standard. So emergency motions are something that can be brought by motion, because they're temporary in nature and emergent. And again, they have to meet a standard, and it's a unique standard, emergency motions that have their own judges have their own opinions on how they should be entered and if they should be entered under certain circumstances. So again,
not everything's an emergency.
It's true. It's worth speaking to an attorney to figure out what that balancing test is on if you should file a post-judgment motion, or if it could qualify, if the relief could be granted in a post-judgment motion, or you actually are going to need to change some terms of your final judgment and parenting plan. So those are really what happens with your post-judgment motions. So, all right.